Chris, it actually happened.
What happened?
Week where nothing happened.
I was going to say, what happened?
Nobody screwed up this week. Although I guess to be fair, that also means that nobody killed it this week either. So it's kind of I guess it's a win-lose. It's not exactly the best scenario, but hey,
yeah.
You know, in all honesty, I think we'll take a break even over oh god, what did Square do this time? You know?
Yeah. No news is good news.
Yeah, I would say so. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cartridge and Quarters, episode 7. Lucky 7. Maybe that's the reason why.
That must be it. That's it, for sure.
But yeah, there's literally nothing crazy that happened this week, so we figured that we'd do something specific for the entire show, and I took an article from Gamatsu where they were talking about Capcom, specifically because they've noted that they will be announcing a bunch of major releases by, I think it was March 2023 was the number they gave.
Yeah.
And most of them are things that, you know, you probably don't really care too much about because most of these have already come out in some aspect. Like, obviously, there's DLC for Monster Hunter Rise. There was that third-person multiplayer shooter Resident Evil Reverse that no one cared about.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, there's the remakes for 2 and 3. They're going to get... Actually, no, I don't think... Well, technically they're out, but I know there's next-gen versions that are coming out this year still. Same goes for Resident Evil 7. That's still got to get a next-gen release. But in terms of like anything that we know of at this point that's coming, there's just Exoprimal, which I don't remember what it is. There's Pragmata, which I don't remember what it is. But there's Street Fighter 6, which I think I have a vague idea what that might be. So I think so I'm 1 for 3 on that point. But those are all things that are supposed to be coming out potentially for March, although Street Fighter I think is still in TBA status. But they did announce that there was going to be multiple major releases by then, which you're thinking, okay, almost 12 months from now. That makes sense.
Right? A company doing something within a year?
Yeah.
You know?
It seems like a viable thing to think about. So I figured using that story, because there's a lot of rumors too that have been going out. Like there was like an Nvidia leak, because a lot of those happened recently where they thought like, oh, these might be things, because that's where people heard about like the Final Fantasy IX remake. That was a rumor that I'm still not sure I believe, but hey, you never know. But like some of the Capcom ones that were related, I remember seeing things on Dragon's Dogma 2, Resident Evil Outbreak being redone. Obviously, Resident Evil 4's remake has been a rumor that's been going for years, and I'm pretty sure it'd be the worst kept secret in Capcom, because if you're doing 2 and 3, you'd be an idiot not to do 4.
Yeah, because that's like the last loved Resident Evil for a bit.
Yeah, and until you get to the basically the reboot is like, it's not really a reboot. 7 was not really, but it was more of like, I guess you could call it a reboot because it went to first person. So I guess technically in a way it is. But the only other notable one that I've seen is rumors of an Onimusha game making a comeback, and not a remake, like straight up just a brand new one. So, and I imagine with like Ghost of Tsushima being as popular as it was, and now Trek to Yomi, which recently just came out, there is definitely a vibe of samurai games making a comeback, so I'm not surprised if that ends up being true.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. It would, I mean, I'd also be very happy. I think that would be a great thing to bring back.
I never played any of them, but like the one thing I always remember is how Jean Reno was in one of them, I think. I can't remember if it's 2 or 3.
Yeah. I don't remember which one, but he definitely was.
Which was just the weirdest thing.
Yeah, especially at a time when like a famous person being in a video game wasn't as common yet. Like now
we didn't get to like, you know, like Martin Sheen and Mass Effect levels yet. Like we weren't there yet.
No, we weren't there. So when somebody showed up, it was like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a lot of cool stuff to look forward to. So I figured because Capcom is kind of like the closest thing we had to a big retro story potentially, because that could mean like a new Mega Man game. Obviously, we know a new Street Fighter's coming out. There's a lot of things to talk about with Capcom's history, and I figured instead of trying to fish for a bunch of small topics, I'd say, hey, let's do an entire show on Capcom's library.
Jump into it. I love it.
So I have a small, I shouldn't say small, it's a relatively big list, because, you know, it's a company that's been around since 1979, although they didn't really start making games till I think 83.
Okay, that makes sense.
But like there's a lot to go through, and I only picked a small amount. Like there's probably people that are gonna be like, why didn't you use this game? Why didn't you use this? That's because we only have about 45 minutes. So you know, you gotta pick and choose. And there may literally be things on this list that I don't even get to because we may spend so much time on something else. So, you know, you start off with the basics. Obviously, Commando and Ghosts and Goblins were like the two that really started getting Capcom going, those being original arcade games. Ghosts and Goblins, most people know from like Super Nintendo because of Super Ghosts and Goblins. So, and also being like a stupid hard game, but hey, what games weren't hard back then?
Yeah, that game was ridiculous. I've never even gotten close to beating that game. Oh my God.
I mean, I've never played one for very long. It was always like a friend's place where I'd play like one life, and we'd be going back and forth. And I was just like 7, so I'm not exactly a master of games. All I know about that game really is like watching Video Game Donkey's video on the remake, or I guess the remastering. Well, I guess it's technically a remake given how old it is. And just seeing him like playing on what he thought was hard, and he's just like, no, this is asshole mode, basically. And just turn it right back down to easy. Because he's like, you know what? No.
At least it has an easy mode, because the original had no kind of accessibility.
The original was, in 1985, which meant it had fuck you mode, and that was it. Because it was give me quarters mode.
Yeah, give me quarters.
But obviously, like, those two were fine. Like, that was just the start. It isn't until you get 2 years later where you obviously get to, the hidden gem in Capcom's history that's known as Mega Man, Yeah,
hidden gem. I like that.
I mean, the original box art we have is a hidden gem in that aspect.
God. Why? And that's only North America's box art.
Yeah, Europe actually got pretty good box art. We didn't get shit.
Everybody else got like Mega Man, and
Japan got like, the anime. Europe got like pretty cool looking, like half anime, half realistic looking art, and then we got like what some guy on an acid trip drew when he on like a random Sunday afternoon.
It doesn't even make sense for the character. He's the wrong color, and he's holding a gun, if I remember correctly. He's like a yellow guy holding a gun.
It's bizarre.
It's so weird, but I mean, it also now has stood the test of time because of how ridiculous it is. If it was good art, we probably wouldn't remember it at this point.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, if there's really any series in Nintendo's library that's more well-known, both for good and bad reasons, I guess, but it's probably Mega Man. I think Street Fighter is right there with it, same with Resident Evil, but like Mega Man's really like the OG for Capcom. And for better or worse, it is really what people still think of almost, I would assume, first when it comes to Capcom.
It is definitely my first. If you boot up a game and it's got that like Capcom logo that comes by with that sound. Yeah. Oh, I'm like, yep, I'm loading up a Mega Man game, like Mega Man X probably, I guess, for that, because the NES didn't have those sound effects yet.
He says that's exactly which game I picked for the video footage as we talk about Mega Man, because I know better.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Oh, Mega Man X.
I have such a lovely relationship with Mega Man too, right? Because like, I'm bad at Mega Man games, but I love Mega Man games. It's just fucking bizarre like that.
Yeah, it's hard, but there's something about it with it's so simplistic. And every time you die, it's your fault. It's not like the game just randomly kills you. It's like they've put 311 enemies on the screen, and if you get hit too many times, you're dead. Or they've given you a jump that you have to do it perfectly. But still, like, it was enjoyable enough that you just kept wanting to try. I remember beating Mega Man 2, which was easier than Mega Man 1. But I mean, I would have been 8 maybe at the time. And me and my friend we just kept retrying, putting in those stupid continue codes.
Game Genie.
Oh, Game Genie? Yeah, we didn't have Game Genie on the NES at the time. And, but like, there was those codes where you could put it back in and get back to where you were or whatever. We'd throw in those codes and just kept trying. And I think it was like a weekend that we finally beat the second game over. I go back and no way.
I know if there's ever a point where I consider doing some gameplay stuff on this channel again, I think one of the things I want to do the most is revisit games that I never really played like a lot or just wasn't good at as a kid. And I feel like Mega Man X is probably one of the first things I would try. Because it's a game that I never played a bunch of, and it's also a game that I know would be like challenging enough that, it wouldn't be like a breeze. Like playing Sonic 3 on this channel, because that is like one of the only gameplay things you'll see. It wasn't hard. It was more just remembering how to do things. Because like every boss, like as soon as I started the boss fight, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember exactly how to do this. It took me, I think, like maybe 3 tries to do big arms, but it was a game that I was able to finish. I do not know how far I would get in Mega Man if you let me play through that.
Yeah, Mega Man X. Yeah, I played through it. I think 5 years ago, maybe 6 or 7. And I remembered a lot of it, and I kept playing it, and I found the main levels, like I could get through them. I didn't remember where all the secrets were, but I was like able to do them, and they were a lot of fun and all that. It wasn't until I got to the like final tower or the final castle or whatever the heck it is in Mega Man, I couldn't beat it for the life of me. Because that's when there's just like because there's the Mega Man boss rush mode always at the end. Replay every boss in a row before going to the final boss, which has 3 stages. Like, what the heck, Mega Man? Why do you keep doing this? And why do people love it? Because that's why they keep doing it.
Because it's good.
Yeah, it is good. It is fun.
I mean, believe me though, I'll finally get the chance to play Mega Man X again. I will beat that first fight against Vile. I know it's scripted and you can't, but trust me, I will. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
I'm better.
Yeah.
I'm better.
I'll give you $5 if you do that.
Well, like apart from X, because I mean, Mega Man as a whole, there's so much to it, right? Like there obviously we've talked about the Legend series a few times on here. Obviously, you can go to like the Zero games. There's Battle Network. There's the Mega Man and Base. There's Battle Network. No, I think I said Battle Network.
You said Battle Network, yeah.
There's Mega Man Soccer on the Super Nintendo, which is a funny thing that exists.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, that was the one I was thinking of. Mega Man X Command Mission, which I wish I could go back and play. I wish I had a copy of it. Actually, wait, do I? I don't remember. I can't remember if I do.
Tried that. Yeah, I didn't try that one.
That one, I know one of my friends who's a big Mega Man guy was super into that because, again, he's a big Mega Man fan and he's a big JRPG guy. That's a match made in heaven right there. It's pretty amazing, like how Mega Man's kind of like been more than just itself. Like, if there's any game that's really made like the transfer to so many different genres, like Mario's done it too, but like really, Mega Man's like the king, I think, of just like being everything.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'm pretty sure there's a Mega Man kart game built into one of the Mega Man games.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Or I think that's what it was on. I want to say PS2. There was like a Mega Man anniversary collection or something like that, and it was in that one that I think they had added some like kart racing PS2 game, like as just a bonus, I think, to the anniversary collection.
Yeah, kind of like how Mortal Kombat was like, hey, let's have a puzzle game and a kart racing game in the same
yeah,
thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, like what's your personal favorite out of all the games that you've played with them?
With Mega Man, I would definitely say Mega Man X is the one I have the most affinity towards, and the reason is because I think I was just the right age. I didn't have any of the Mega Man games on my own NES, and I would always go to my buddy's house to play them, and I'd be pretty young. Like, I know we beat Mega Man 2, which probably would be my second favorite, but it wasn't until Mega Man X where I had my own copy and actually played through it a bunch myself. So I would give X that title, and probably Mega Man 2 as second place, just because those are the two I played so much of. And there's so much from it that, like, the music from both, you could play one of the songs from those and like Storm Eagle or whatever, and I'm like, boom, I'm just there. Like, yeah. I just loved it.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely Mega Man Legends because, well, it's the only Mega Man games in the series I finished. Actually, that's a lie. I think I did Battle Network 1 as completely. Okay. And and Mega Man Soccer. I did clear Mega Man Soccer.
Did you actually?
Yeah, I've actually cleared that game.
I think I saw that a lot at the store and I just never grabbed it.
Yeah, it's just one of those weird things that, like, you're like, how is that going to work? And it just happens to work. But no, Legends is definitely my favorite because, honestly, like, if Mega Man games were like that, I would love that. I would love to see a third-person Mega Man game again. I would love for them to do something like that. I think it has a real good ability to have, you know, because you look at, say, a game like Returnal, like that looks like something that Mega Man could do really, really well with its visual look that it has. Because it's like, it's partially anime, it's partially like, you know, more like action, like, you know, 80s cartoon stuff. Like, it has a pretty good mishmash of styles. So I think it would be a really nice thing to see in a third-person game because it would be very different from what most third-person games look like.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that would be amazing.
But yeah, Mega Man, you know, just that little known game from Capcom. Followed by the next game, which technically this isn't the correct game to start with, but in 1987 there was this other little gem called Street Fighter. It's just specifically not this one. No. Because the original isn't exactly the greatest looking.
No, I think people think that game is different. Or they just don't know it exists.
I'm pretty sure people look at Street Fighter 2, The World Warrior, which came out in 91. I think they look at that as like Street Fighter 1 because Street Fighter 1 looks nothing like Street Fighter 2.
No, No, I don't. Was it even a fighting game?
I think it was
Pretty
like,
sure.
if I remember correctly, it was more of like a like almost like an arcade fighter, like a beat 'em up sort of thing.
Mm. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That it was more of a beat 'em up game. Which I mean, Street Fighter. It would make sense for the name. And that genre was huge on the NES,
I mean,
right?
I
So
think it was actually, I think it still kind of was a fighting game, but the way that they did it back then was just not the same.
yeah.
And it just it didn't connect well. Like it wasn't very well optimized. I think it was just one of those games that like just didn't it didn't go over well back then. They really didn't perfect the formula until 91's Street Fighter 2 release.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's when that took off. Like that was just fighting games becoming popular, coming out of the arcades, becoming coming to like consoles and stuff. Because yeah, on the NES, I don't think there was really any fighting games in the traditional sense. And if there were, I've never heard of them.
Yeah,
Because
if they were always small time, like there's not that one that you see that really like stood out as being the de facto one. Like Street Fighter really is what tipped it off. And
oh
even
yeah,
on the last Pixel Play with Kaylan, we talked about how like Mortal Kombat was really what took Street Fighter and like made fighting games like legitimate in all aspects of the industry.
oh
You know,
100%. It was like
those two collectively is what really caused what we see now when you see games like Guilty Gear and Soul Calibur and Killer Instinct and so many others.
play fighters.
Okay, not Clay Fighters. Maybe not Clay Fighters.
Oh yeah,
There's
Street
certainly a
Fighter.
lot of bad games that spawn because of these of those two specifically, but including Street Fighter the movie, the game.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're right. The movie, the game. At least the movie you can laugh at, but the movie, the game, it's like, oh come on, what just happened?
Yeah, it was one of those. I figure when it comes to Street Fighter, like I always go back to Super Street Fighter 2 as like my de facto.
Yeah, that's my only complaint with Street Fighter 2. There is like 17 different editions of that one
But
game.
that's every Street Fighter game, it seems now.
Yeah,
How many
for
different
sure.
versions of Street Fighter 5 have there been?
Yeah. But at least like now you can probably just get the DLC or upgrade your version you already have, maybe. I'm not sure. The old back then it was like you own Street Fighter 2 and then you'd go to buy Super Street Fighter 2. And then there'd be like Super Street Fighter 2 Tournament Edition, and then you go grab that. Or I have no idea. I can't remember the names at this point, but you had to buy a whole new game, like a whole new cart. But it did add to the game. It was almost like they did DLC. They just had to attach it to the real game and just sell it as a new copy because it was the Super Nintendo. No one did DLC, obviously. But yeah, who knows what edition everybody kind of had. Good thing though is like if you had the main game and then your buddy had, you know, the Super Tournament Edition, DLX Edition, whatever the heck it'd be called, at least it all played the same, right? It's not like
Yeah.
like you'd go and it'd be a completely different game. The only difference is there might be an extra character or two that you don't know, but everything else you completely know. All the moves are the same, the characters are the exact same. So
I
guess
who was your main, you know, whenever you played Street Fighter the most, like who was always the character you gravitated to the most?
I would usually go Chun-Li because I, for some reason, was able to just jump around and actually fight pretty well with her. I'll be straight up. I kind of suck at fighting games a lot. So it's not kinda, it's huge. I suck huge at them. She was the closest I could get to actually having a fighting chance. But if I had to actually pick my favorite character, Blanca. I don't know why, just something about whatever the heck he was. And it's just like electricity and the sounds he made on the like SNES like music chip that was built in. Like he was definitely my favorite to play as, but I wasn't very good at him. So I had to go like Chun-Li.
Yeah, through my history, Cammy was usually a big one. If I don't count when I was just trying to get through first player really easily, like I would just go Ihana and slap endlessly.
Oh yeah.
But like Cammy was probably a main. I did like DJ a bunch when I used to play Street Fighter 2 as well.
I don't think
If I'm
I
thinking
played
about the
DJ.
newer games, I'm trying to think who in the newer games I was pretty big on. Sakura was one that was a pretty big on. I think who was the other one? I think it was Vega that I played a little bit of just because I thought he looked fucking cool.
I did enjoy Vega in Street Fighter 2 and beyond, basically. Vega was very cool.
Well, it was
Very
always cool in Street Fighter 2, like the odd time you could knock his mask off
Yeah.
or knock
Yeah.
the claw off.
Or the claw, yeah. Yeah. Oh, such good gaming times.
So we get into a bunch of smaller stuff. I mean, we took the two big ones right out of the gate because, you know, those are the ones that have been around forever.
Yeah.
You have things like Bionic Commando in in '88, which a lot of us just laugh at because the reboot was just an absolute dumpster fire.
Yeah, it was.
'89 was DuckTales. We all remember that.
Oh my gosh, the music from that game. That's back when like there would be a cartoon like direct to NES franchise game and they were good. Like
Yeah.
you'd get like DuckTales, you'd get Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, you'd get Tailspin, all that stuff. Which I think you can all get them now in the Disney Afternoon Collection or Disney Saturday Morning Collection or something. They have like all those copies. If anybody I highly suggest playing those if anybody listening to this has not, because they actually put a lot of love and proper gaming mechanics into these games, unlike the early 2000s where all the direct tie-in games with movies and stuff weren't the best.
Well, I mean, you think of the sheer amount of like Disney games that Capcom was a part of, like Aladdin, Little Mermaid, a bunch of the I can't remember the full title of it. It wasn't Castle of Illusion. It was something else with Mickey, but like they had like several of those.
Yeah. And they even brought the DuckTales and I think Castle of Illusion. They did like a remaster.
They did do a complete remaster of DuckTales. I know that for sure.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they did one for Castle of Illusion too, because I'm pretty sure I had both of them on Steam.
Well,
and they were both like same idea.
Even like Darkwing Duck, Tailspin, like they did a bunch of stuff for Disney in the '90s. So like, they had their hands full with a lot of stuff. So like, they own pretty well. And I'm sure, and I don't know if DuckTales was the first, but it was definitely like one of the key ones that I guess probably really got that relationship going.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, because that game must have sold like crazy. If it didn't in the beginning, it became so well known that like I mean even when you just go on gaming music like playlists and stuff, you'll always get at least one song from DuckTales.
There's always a cover of Moon somewhere.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Always. And it's like I mean I stop instantly and it's so recognizable, right? Like there's nothing you can do but just love it.
Yeah. Also 89, Final Fight and Strider. Those are two like games that kind of just fell off. Like I think Final Fight would be interesting to see make a comeback, but I assume that there's not a lot of room when Streets of Rage has kind of made that comeback. I don't know if Final Fight would get the same kind of response now. Strider, same deal. I think you could do something really cool with Strider now, but I think also Ghost Runner kind of covers that. So
yeah,
there's kind of that front.
I think they did a remaster or another game of Strider like 8 or 10 years ago or something like that.
I believe you're right on that.
Yeah, I may even own it, but it's one of those games that I just have no desire to play.
Yeah.
Or it'll take me a while to get there.
Well, when there
so
are
they
things,
may have done something, but
when there are things that we want to play, though, I think when we get to 93 and there's the original Breath of Fire, I think we go, can we get more of that?
Yeah, when you mentioned that we're going to be talking about Capcom, there was two things that immediately came to my mind, and it was Mega Man and Breath of Fire. I know Street Fighter is in there, obviously, but Breath of Fire is like, oh my god, those games were fantastic JRPGs.
They're so well done, and like even the Super Nintendo version on its own is very timeless.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it just looks like an indie game to be released now.
Oh, 100%. The only complaint I'd have with the first one, because it's on Switch Online. The first two, I think they are both on there. Definitely the first one is because I played like 10 hours on it. It's very grindy and very hard.
Yeah, but I mean, JRPGs back in those days always were.
Oh yeah. Like just going from the first town to the second area, if you didn't grind up to like level 5 or 6 just to go to the first area, like you're not making it. You better power up. You better grind it out now. But it was like so enjoyable the entire time. And the music is so timeless. Oh.
And you sit there and it's been forever since a good one came out. I know that Dragon Quarter exists. It's not a Breath of Fire game. It's a Breath of Fire game in name only. There was the mobile browser microtransaction ridden one that came out in the last decade, I believe. That was supposedly the 6th one, and we all went, no. It's one of the it's one of those things that I wish that not in a full-on remake today. I would love to see a 7th game that's more still like the old stuff. Like you could make a really easy old school one that you can only charge $20-$30 for, and instead of going out there and trying to be like, all right, here's $50 million, guys, go make us some epic JRPG. We're like, you don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have to at all.
And I don't know if I'd want Breath of Fire like that, honestly, because the only Breath of Fire that we know that's really been good has always been the either the Super Nintendo or PlayStation ones.
Yeah, 1 to 4. They all had similar looks, just slightly updated graphics, just slightly. And they could do that with like an anime style. Like the look of the game would be able to translate so well into just like an anime style game, right? Like they could go like Tales of, but like top down, just 2.5D maybe.
You could easily use like what Octopath does.
Yes. Oh, 100%. 100%. And it would fit so well too, because it just, like, most people remember 1 to 4, and then it's like, okay, where's the true 5th game? Because that's what we're waiting for.
I think there's just a large contingency of JRPG fans that would just love to see just a top-down JRPG game again. And I don't mean all the RPG Maker, like, frigging things that are on there. I'm sure some of them are good, but every time I see them on the PlayStation Store, I scoff at it. Because I'm just like, man, I can't get myself to go that when I know it's just like something that was made in RPG Maker. My brain just won't allow it. And it's, again, I'm sure that so much work was put into them, but it just doesn't have the same feeling to it if it comes out from like a major company, right?
Yeah, oh for sure. Oh for sure. Yeah, I need like a top-down JRPG. There just isn't enough. There just isn't.
Yeah. And it's something that I hope comes back. What else here? We got 94 Darkstalkers, another popular fighting game series that has gone out throughout. Most people will know it just because like Morrigan is a big character in that and is always in Marvel vs. Capcom games, which I might as well throw that in there too in 98, although there's something before Marvel vs. Capcom that we'll get to shortly. But like a lot of things in Capcom, they may not be well known for the games themselves. Marvel vs. Capcom seem to put a lot of characters out there in the forefront, like obviously, Ghosts and Goblins is another one. Bionic Commando was a big thing in one of them. Morrigan has been a staple in those games. Same with Felicia as well.
Yep.
And then I guess all those Marvel characters might have something to do with it too,
Oh, for sure. Which is weird because that's another license they got and did really well with.
Except for that one that they did where the collector's edition came with the Infinity Stones, but they just look like Easter eggs.
Yeah, we don't talk about Capcom now. This is a retro podcast, is when they're still good. Back then, they were really good with franchises like Disney games, as we mentioned, Marvel apparently with like the Marvel versus Capcom.
Well, they did a lot of their games too. Like there were a lot of X-Men games that Capcom was part of publishing. So like they've had their hands full with some pretty good licenses. It'd be interesting to see what Capcom would do if they got a Marvel license again, to see what they could just pull off with what they have. Because I think there's some interesting things you can do with the style of games that they make. Like you can imagine like how games like Monster Hunter or Resident Evil or even like another fighting, like obviously Marvel vs. Capcom exists, but like you could do something a little bit more interesting where it's strictly Marvel characters and you can just have like a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I would want to see what they could do with the property. Especially if they even tried to do something that was a little old school, Sure, update the graphics, make it 4K, resolution and everything, but still give it that old school look and feel.
Yeah. But yeah, I said we skipped one, and it really is like the last bastion of Capcom. Like Monster Hunter is a big one, like, but it's been since 2004. It's not nearly as like it hasn't had the time to be as legendary. But 96 was the first Resident Evil, and that's like the last big like anchor that Capcom's had for the last really almost 30 years now.
Yeah, which is crazy. Crazy that they've had this so long and they're still going with them, and there's like new Netflix shows coming out about it and everything. Like it's bonkers how much Resident Evil is still in just like pop culture now. Even though
it like nearly tried to kill itself, because in that age of Capcom just not doing the right things for a while, like it was getting up there where people were just getting real tired of it.
Oh yeah. They definitely had like 4 really good games. They did really well, and they figured they were just invincible. Whatever, they can do whatever they want, and they just stopped putting in good content. Just putting out.
It was definitely a struggle. Like I've never been too big into Resident Evil games because again, horror games are not necessarily my thing. But
same.
I mean, I would say that like there's a lot still to love about it if that's your jam. And I mean, I've played Resident Evil 4 and I've actually really enjoyed it. Especially on the Wii, actually, because the controls on the Wii were not bad. Like, they actually did a pretty good job of making it feel like you were a person. Like, because here's my one complaint about Resident Evil games, especially like the more 3D ones. Actually, I guess all of them really had this problem. Why are you always like a well-trained like military operative or a cop or, you know, an agent, and you have the most horrible gun controls?
This is true.
You're supposed to be this well-trained frickin' like military dude that's shot so many firearms over the course of his or her lifespan, and you can't do anything with them.
Yeah. Yeah, oh my gosh. And I think it was the first couple of games they had like the tank controls or whatever you call them, where it's like you moved weird. The original Tomb Raider had this, Silent Hill had this. I could never figure that out ever. So when 4 came out, especially on the Wii, I was like, "Oh my god, normal movement."
And even then it was still a little lackluster. Like, it still wasn't like that fluent.
No. But it felt like leaps and bounds over the first 3 games with the way they were. Oh yeah, for
sure.
Yeah.
What do you think about them deciding to start doing their main series in first person now, since they've done now 7 in Village?
I think it's actually really good. You and me have talked about this a lot, but I agree with things that you've said before, where it's like having a third person and a first person set of games and having both is amazing, because then it's kind of covering the genre. Like, horror doesn't necessarily mean third person, doesn't necessarily mean first person. You know, as long as they stay to the horror aspect, I think that it's great that they try these different things. If all of a sudden they do Resident Evil like Playground, you know, Babysitter Edition, and it has nothing to do with Resident Evil, it's kind of like, okay, fine, maybe as a joke.
So Umbrella Corps.
Yeah, okay, that's not great. But as long as they like stick to their roots and keep it like well made and show that they still like put love into it, unlike what they did with 5 and especially 6. I say all for it. Like, I personally can't play 7 or 8. The fact that they become first person is even more scary for me, and I am a wuss when it comes to horror games.
Yeah, I've seen the baby section in 8, and I went, that is terrifying. No, there's no way. Nope. I would have to be like a really famous Twitch streamer on a charity stream where I'm making some like amazing charity a lot of money to do that, because that is way more stress than I need to have.
Yeah, there's no way in hell I'm picking that up and playing it without a gun to my head. There's no way.
But I do like the fact that because you have the 2, you now have... Because I'm not going to assume they're never going to do a new third-person game ever again. But what it now allows them to do is that you can have games like 7 and 8 that are a lot more atmospheric and can do a lot more because you see only what's in front of you now.
Yeah.
Whereas if you want to do more action stuff, you can definitely do that with anything in third person. I think that's a good way to balance it, where, you know, you can have your almost like, I know it's the complete opposite because it's technically competition at the time, but you can have like a PT level, like super scary Resident Evil that still has gun mechanics and still has like, you know, a little bit of action to it. But then if you want to be, okay, I want like, you know, to be scared a little bit, but I'm more like, I want to like, you know, punch the shit out of stuff, then boom, there's, you know, obviously the remakes that we've had so far. If Outbreak happens to be a thing that comes back, if 4 gets its remake, there's always that too. And I think that's a nice balance to have in the future if that's what they're going for.
I think so too. Yeah, because then like 9 could come and it's third person, and then 10 is first person. Like, they could definitely go with what seems to work for the time and for whatever type of Resident Evil they're going for. Like 7, I haven't played it, but I know a little bit about the story. If it was third person and it was about a guy, like, it's not this like military guy, this is actually just somebody ending up in like a house or whatever. Like, the first person makes it like, hey, you're in this situation, and it makes it feel more real, like it's you. Plus it let them do VR, right? Like, which I've seen videos of that. There's no way in hell I'm doing that either. That's even more of a nope.
What, you don't want to see yourself getting your hand impaled by a screwdriver in VR?
No, I don't. I really don't. I don't even want to see a screwdriver in a room in VR if it's Resident Evil. I don't even want to see things, because all I'm thinking is I'm going to turn around and something's behind me, and that won't go well for me. Not even a little bit.
No, not at all.
No.
Let's see what else. 99 Dino Crisis. That's a game that I almost feel like it's probably coming soon.
It has to.
I think it's been long enough. There's been rumors here and there of potentially the license being redone. I think there's a lot to that, and I think it makes sense given the way things are. And like dinosaurs are suddenly making a bit of a weird comeback. Like Jurassic Park obviously kind of started that off by the new movies being much more commercialized successes again. We've seen like things like Second Extinction come out that tried to capitalize on that. Monster Hunter has obviously done very well with the idea of dinosaurs plus whatever else they come up with.
Yeah.
I definitely think that there is a place for a Dino Crisis game, and I think obviously it allows Capcom to do third-person games without having to just, stick to Resident Evil for that stuff. I think Dino Crisis is a great way for them to kind of get back in the feel of things again.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I'm actually, that's probably the thing I want them to make the most, just because it hasn't been around for so long.
I didn't realize there were 3 of them.
I didn't either. I thought there was maybe 2. Wow.
That should tell you just like how much time we've missed stuff.
Yeah.
It's real easy to though, because like especially as a kid, you don't get to get every game that comes out. So like it's a lot harder to keep up with things.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. Were they on PS2? The last ones?
Let me quickly search up Dino Crisis 3 just to make sure. That one, it was for Xbox.
Oh, that explains why I didn't play that.
That would do it. I did not even know, because now that I'm looking at the cover, I did not know that existed. I've never seen that artwork before.
No. If I saw that in passing, I would have not noticed because I just wasn't an Xbox guy at the time. Wow. But I mean, that's still a long time ago. That's like PS2 era.
2001, Devil May Cry. That's when the PS2 era really kicked off, and that was their big flagship since, at that point, Mega Man was not really a thing anymore. Street Fighter was doing its thing, but it wasn't super big, because I think around that time was like when Alpha was becoming a big thing on like Dreamcast.
Yes.
And Resident Evil was just about its point of no return for a little while.
Yeah, that's around.
So there was a stretch of games where Capcom like still made some strides, because Devil May Cry was a big one. Onimusha also was 2001.
Yep.
But it was around that time that they started doing a lot more handheld stuff that really started getting popular. Before I get to the 2 big ones in the early 2000s, here's something I didn't know. Did you know that Capcom technically has worked on 3 Legend of Zelda games?
Oh, I did, because they did Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of... What was the other one? Time?
Ages. So Flagship, the company that made that game, is a subsidiary of Capcom, and they've also participated in Link to the Past plus 4 Swords Adventure, and they also had a part in Minish Cap, because Flagship made Minish Cap.
Right.
So technically, Capcom has Zelda in its history.
That's crazy. The thing that's shocking me the most, which I had not realized until we started recording this, is the amount of genres that Capcom has tackled and, for a time, mastered. Like, if you think fighting games, they had Street Fighter 2 and Marvel vs. Capcom, which I get they probably run on the same engines, but like, holy crap. You had Breath of Fire for JRPGs. You had Mega Man for platformers. You had Resident Evil for horror / third-person action adventure. Like, holy crap. Like, even just in the 90s. And then they got, like, Resident Evil, and they also got, like, Disney games. That is a lot of genres that they tackled and, like, were the kings of.
Yeah, there was a long period of time where Capcom were, like, one of the gold standards. And then there was a good chunk of, like, the 2000s where they just kind of lost it. And then, obviously, have regained it since, like, obviously, Resident Evil's reboot. You had... Mega Man still kind of never really made a full return. It's been better, but it's never really been like the same ever again. Street Fighter is obviously as popular as it's ever been.
Yeah.
But like you go through the 2000s, so like the big ones they had that to kind of help them still stay relevant for a while. Phoenix Wright in 2002, also Shantae started out in 2002.
I did not know they did Phoenix Wright. How did I not know that? Another genre I guess they decided to either create or tackle.
It's on PlayStation and I believe Steam, and I'm waiting for whichever one gets cheap enough that I finally take it. But they have like the trilogy or whatever of like those games. I want to go back and play them because I only ever played the original.
I have them on my wish list on Steam, I think, but I've never played them at all.
Also, side shout out to their Oh my god, Hanna-Barbera counterpart Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, which was actually fucking great. That game was great. That was like adult Ace Attorney. It was fucking fantastic. If anybody's never seen that show before, by the way, check that out too. If you want to see like basically like a show about a court, like just a regular like attorney, and it just ends up like riffing on like the entire history of Hanna-Barbera, because like almost every character under the sun from their history appears in there at some point. He literally like tries to defend Shaggy and Scooby for pot charges in that show.
It's so good. They're so self-aware. That
also,
was
Stephen
a really
Colbert's
good
his boss, which is fantastic.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I never played the game connected to it, but I did see the show.
Yeah. But yeah, Shantae as well. And then you get to 2004 where you get to Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter didn't find its stride just yet. Like the first game was fine, but like I feel like it took a while until I think when it hit DS, it started really picking up steam, because Japan obviously loves their handhelds. And then obviously the last one they've put out, Monster Hunter World. Actually, I shouldn't say last one because Rise exists, but like Monster Hunter World like cemented it. That was when like everyone knew what Monster Hunter was. And it came out at a perfect time because that's when the Souls games started getting really popular. And Monster Hunter is like very much a Souls game in a sense, because it's very difficult to play when you first get into it. It takes a lot of learning.
Okay.
As someone, it's the closest thing to a Souls game that I've ever been good at. And I say good at in very, very loose quotations.
Sounds like the only Souls game I'd actually want to play and enjoy.
I mean, we should at some point. We both have it with the Plus collection, so at some point it will happen.
I do want to play it. I've had that wish listed for like 5 years. Like I've wanted it for so long and now have it. I just got to get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you get to like the mismatch of like random stuff. So here's like the small list of that's remaining that we'll rush through because we're already 40 minutes in here on the show. So Beautiful Joe was in 2004, which a lot of people remember on the GameCube. Tell me if you remember this one. Do you remember Dark Watch?
No.
It was basically like them like taking like a Western like steampunk shooter. It was like a third-person shooter that was like almost like if Van Helsing had a game.
Oh,
and it was like PS2. I think Xbox had it as well. I'm not sure. That was one I remember because I thought the cover looked badass because I was an angsty teenager at that time. It's not the greatest game, but it wasn't bad for its time. And then like, you know, Darksiders came in and went, okay, this is what like badass like Van Helsing looking characters are supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Not in third person shooter, but you know, it was fun. Dead Rising was 2006, which I have a love-hate relationship with as well because I think they're cool games, but I also can't stand the fact of timers. That is my biggest enemy in games.
Yeah, I don't like timers either. That's why I never got into those ones.
There was the Lost Planet series also in 2006 that had 3 games, but for some reason never caught traction, even though it got 3 games. I remember this when I saw Lost Planet 3, even me and like the not amazing depth of gaming knowledge that I had, I went, really? A third one? I didn't know anybody played the first 2.
I'm pretty sure I own the third one from like a Humble Bundle or something.
Yeah, you probably own like half of the entire library in history because of Humble Bundle.
Accurate.
And then the last few things, 06 Okami, that is definitely a cult favorite.
Oh yeah. I've never beaten that game. I've played it. I've owned it 3 times. I had it on PS3 because they came out with like an HD remaster then. And then I have it on Steam. And then I was like, well, if I'm going to play this, I'll probably only play it portably. And they did a really good Switch port. Bought on Switch. And I've started it and played a lot 3 times. And I've still never actually finished it. That game is long.
Yeah.
It's long. But amazing.
And then lastly, 2012 is the last year that I'll pull from Asura's Wrath, which was a pretty popular thing just because it was almost like basically an anime in a video game. Dragon's Dogma, which, as we mentioned at the whole top of the show, a lot of people are hoping for a second one of those. That became a bit of a cult favorite. And then to cap it all off, because I feel like it's the best game to make sense to finish off with, Project X Zone for the DS, because it literally takes all of Capcom's characters and throws them together into like a Final Fantasy Tactics game.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Oh, I'd love to play that.
There's 2 of them actually, which I didn't know of. So, but yeah, I played
remember
the first one. I didn't get too into it, but I don't think that's because the game sucked. I just never got really into handhelds. Outside of being an early kid with Game Boy Color, I never was a big handheld guy. As soon as I got out of high school, like as soon as I was able to afford money for consoles, I'm like, this is so much better. I can chill on a couch. Yeah, and not like crank my neck looking down at this thing.
I disappeared from handheld gaming for a while, but for some reason the DS Lite, I just came back. I think it was Final Fantasy 3 was finally being released in North America on there, and I picked it up and I actually started to enjoy handheld gaming, and then I picked up a 3DS like on launch day. So I got back into it hard.
Yeah.
And then after that stopped. I mean, I guess the Switch, but
Yeah.
not sure if that counts. Yeah.
So yeah, the company's been around making games for more than 40 years now, and it's a hell of a library. And it's also great because we grew up in a time where it was fantastic, and then became young adults around the time that they stopped, because there was a good period where like nothing from them was clicking. Nothing. Mega Man was basically long and dead. Street Fighter was okay, like, but it wasn't what Street Fighter V ended up turning into be, which was an esports juggernaut. Resident Evil was really floundering, and anything they were really releasing at the time that was new was just, it was okay, but it wasn't like killing.
No, it was like enough to keep them afloat, and it would be like released on mobile, like Shantae and stuff like that, which are good games, like they're fun, but they didn't have the
they weren't the pedestal
talent.
Like topping stuff that it used to be.
Exactly. Yeah, it seems like they just didn't really. Yeah, the 2000s was rough for them.
I mean, you really look to. I hoping I can find something quickly. But like the last like not even 10 years, like the last like 7 really have been like their best. Just the amount of comebacks they've had. Let's see how far I can scroll down a list here. Let's go to, so it's 2014. No, it's not quite there. So it's definitely been less than 10 for sure. So if I go to, let's see, 2015 is mostly re-releasing, so it's not really that yet. 2016 is when Street Fighter starts. So let's start from there. So Street Fighter was in 2016. Dead Rising 4 came out to decent fanfare, but not a lot in 2016. But then things really started kicking because 2017 was Resident Evil 7. That obviously really got things going. And I hit the wrong button. This is what happens when you try to go through sites. They're always weird in the way that they click things off here. So after that, I think Monster Hunter World wasn't far behind. Yeah, that was 2018. Then you had a bunch of legacy collections because they figured, oh crap, we better start capitalizing on people liking our stuff again. So let's remind them how good we used to be.
Yeah.
And then you had Mega Man 11, which was decent from what I understand in 2018. Resident Evil 2's remake was in 2019. Devil May Cry 5 came out in 2019, and people really liked that game a lot.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh yeah, the 3 remake, because I keep scrolling and I'm like, I don't know what half of these I didn't know all of these things existed. But Resident Evil 3 in 2020, Ghosts and Goblins got its redo in 2021, Monster Hunter Rise in 2021, Resident Evil Village in 2021. We do have Ace Attorney getting that complete repackaging, and now we're just waiting to see what their Exoprimal and Pragmata games are going to be like. So we'll see how those go. And then obviously there are games that are going to be working on right now that we don't know about. There are a lot of rumors. There are a lot of like things that should be coming back. But like it's nice to just see a company that was down and out for a while and is now like back to really kicking ass. Now, it doesn't mean everything they put out is going to be great again. No, they're eventually going to have to flounder. You can only go so long before you have a few misses here and there.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's a couple of things they could definitely bring back. Dino Crisis and Breath of Fire, like something like that. That could really do well now.
There would be a lot of goodwill if they make a good Breath of Fire game. Like JRPG fans would love to see that make a comeback.
Yeah, especially if it was in like an old school fashion, because like they're hurting right now. Like we're hurting trying to get just a classic JRPG. It's mostly just Kingdom Hearts style JRPGs now.
Yeah, you're basically just playing emulators if you want to live the good old days because it's all you got.
Yeah. But they've like Resident Evil, even with Mega Man 11 and stuff, like they're actually giving love to the franchises that built them, right? Like they're actually putting that out there. Even Ace Attorney and stuff, which is kind of even in their 2000s dark area of Capcom, where it was, the dark cloud over them. And they've actually put, some love into that and re-release that kind of stuff. So the Shantae games, there's a bunch that are coming out like constantly. I feel like I can't even keep up when I see a new one is coming out or getting released on something. So they're definitely holding on to some of their franchises and doing them really well. There's still more they could do, but I definitely now see that Capcom logo in like a news article, and I'm not scared. It's
Yeah,
not like
if you see like at an E3 presentation for like Sony or Xbox or something, and you see the Capcom logo pop up right away, you're like, okay, this might not be hot garbage, you know?
yeah, I want to see it. Where if it was Konami or if it was Square, I'm like, I'm curious, but I don't have high hopes. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've spent the last 50 minutes talking about, stuff that makes us feel old. Why don't we cap off the show by continually doing that and for another 10 to 15 minutes as we go through what has had birthdays in the last 7 days.
I love it. Also hate it.
This week in We're Old, we have to skip Sunday and Monday, the 8th and 9th, because nothing of note really came out according to my list that I've generated. So we moved to the 10th, where in 1998... in Europe specifically, this was originally released December 21st of 97 in Japan, but on the N64, Yoshi's Story was out into the wild.
Oh, I love that game.
I never actually played that one.
It was so childish. It was where they like took Yoshi from like Super Mario World 2, where it's still like a platformer and kind of tough, to just like kid level, easy, adorable. But it was still very enjoyable to play and collect the different Yoshi eggs to get the different Yoshis and different colors and all that.
It's interesting how like Yoshi hasn't gotten too many games because it feels like a great mascot, but I guess because they figure Kirby does most of the lifting for when it comes to like the easier, like child-friendly games.
Yeah. Yeah, Yoshi did get a game on Switch, which was in the exact same way of that, like...
Yeah, I think Yoshi's
Kirby
Woolly World,
yarn.
I believe.
Yeah, it's like they took the Kirby yarn idea for kids and did wool for Yoshi. Same idea.
Yeah.
Looks adorable, but I don't know. I'm not paying $80 for it.
For sure. Moving to the 11th, we got 2 games here. This one's a personal favorite of mine because that was back in the day when sports games were kind of meh. But in North America in 99 on that day for the N64, Ken Griffey Jr. Slugfest.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I actually love that game. And I didn't play many
when sports games used to be fun and not just, hey, look how real this is. And we're like, that's nice. Is the game fun to play, though?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a reason that those games were fun, because they were a game and they were built around like the fun factor.
100%.
Oh, so good back then.
And then also in 1995, not the original release date, but it was released initially in Japan in March of 94 for arcades. But on the Sega Saturn here in North America, we got Daytona USA.
Daytona.
Which I will still never forget as the game that every time I go to Palladium, I wanted to play the most, because that's where you got into the ones that had the cars that could move.
Yeah, there was a lineup for that usually, and it went
even
like
though there was like 12 of them or like 18, like it was a stupid amount, but like everybody wanted to play it because it was the one really cool machine.
Yeah, the music was good. The chairs that you sat in were good. Oh, I love that thing so much.
Then we move on to the 12th, where we have 2 games as well. Sticking with the racing genre, initially released on December 27th or December 23rd of 1997 in Japan. Really, 2 days before Christmas, and that's what you put out in Japan. That's an interesting choice there, Sony. But for the PlayStation 1 in North America, we got Gran Turismo for the first time.
Oh, nice. I have a love-hate relationship with that game. I hate the driver's test where I threw my controller. It's the only time I've thrown my controller at the TV. I did it once, and I decided that I couldn't play that game. I couldn't. It was beyond what I was capable of.
Well, I'd say you like this one more, but this one was really hard too. Initially released in Japan, original release 1989 for the NES consoles, the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, aka that side-scrolling one that was so hard.
That was so hard. It was ridiculous. I remember seeing a YouTube video where there's this one jump that I remember as a kid I couldn't get over. And the person was like, what if I just tried to walk over it? And you actually could just walk over the little gap. Because if you try and jump, you hit the roof and you fall down the gap, and you try over and over. And the enemies would respawn every time.
Developers were assholes back in those days.
Yeah, I didn't get anywhere in that game. Anywhere. It was so hard.
We talked about this one earlier as we move on to the 13th, but in 2001 in North America, initially released in February 27th of 2001, but for the Game Boy Color, we got Legend of Zelda: Oracle of Seasons and Ages.
Nice. I've actually, as a big Zelda fan, I hate to admit this, I've never played either of those.
I think I might have like through a rental store, but I never owned it, so I never got close to finishing it.
I never even tried it. I didn't have a Game Boy Color after the original Game Boy. I just dropped out of handhelds for a while, and I never got the chance to play it. I should. I should go back and play them somehow.
If we went back and played all the things that we should have played, we'd never be able to play anything today.
No. And my backlog would cry even harder.
Our backlogs would collectively be more than 1,000.
Yeah.
Just of those retro games.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually terrifying.
And then last, today, not today here as we're recording on Thursdays, but today as the show comes out, May the 14th, we have 3 games. First, 2002. A lot of people never play this one, and I wish people had, but it was kind of one of those things where like people just kind of avoided them because a lot of licensed anime games just never did very well back then. But originally in North America, and weirdly enough, Australia got this on the same day as us, which is an interesting name. I noted that. Like, it wasn't Europe didn't get it on this day. No, like us in Australia. Very, very strange.
Yeah, that is.
But on the Game Boy Advance, Dragon Ball Z: The Legacy of Goku, which I think is a very underrated game.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. I loved that game. I was big into DBZ in 2002 as well.
It was a weird time for DBZ too, because like there were some decent games. Like the Budokai games were like hit and miss. I feel like they've never really hit a true strike. Like I don't think there's a legendary game apart from the Arc Systems Works games that they did, Dragon Ball Fighters. I think that's probably the closest I've ever seen to like a Dragon Ball Z game be like legitimately good. I think there's been like decent ones. Like Xenoverse tried pretty decently. It did an okay job. But like for the most part, like most of them were always like cheap, like knockoffs. Like they were just trying to capitalize on the license. You just play the same sagas over and over again with like barely there like third-person gameplay usually. It was never that great. But Legacy of Goku was actually pretty decent.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, there was a lot of write-in games there where they were just like, let's cash in on the property without having to actually do much.
Yeah, pretty much. Another series that we talked about during our Capcom reference, another one here in 1998. This was originally released on September 11th of 1997 in Japan. Breath of Fire 3 for the PlayStation 1.
Oh.
I've still yet to play either or on PlayStation, so that's something I like. If we want to talk about backlogs that I need to go back to with retro stuff, those two would be them.
I mean, there's a possibility those could be on that PS Now, or not PS Now, PS Premium.
That's very much a possibility, yeah.
Whatever it would be called. Those would be ones I could see being on there, and I would play immediately.
Yeah, I would welcome that. It would give me a chance to go grab a couple of things and just like see what, not necessarily finish them, but at least have an idea of like, man, would this have been a game that like when I was a kid I would have loved?
Yeah.
And then lastly, this is one that I wish I'd played. And if this does come on PlayStation Plus, I will play it because I want to know what the original is because I've never played the original of the series. But initially released in Japan for the PlayStation 1, the original Guilty Gear, which I will sell over and over to people as what I believe to be the best 2D fighting game currently to this day.
Dang. Yeah, I've never tried a Guilty Gear. I hate to admit it, but I've just never... Again, I suck at fighting games, so I don't seek them out.
Yeah, one of these days, because I know I have XRD on our console share. If Strive ever gets at a good enough price, I will get Strive and be like, yo, we are playing this. Before, like, I'm not going to touch it either, so we're both going to go in cold.
All right.
And we'll fucking play that, because that... I want to play it so bad, but I don't like fighting games enough to go, like, spend more than $30 on them, because all I'm going to do is play, like, a little bit of versus and a little bit of story mode, and that's it. Like, I don't play online. So you're not going to get that much money out of me.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I like, if I do a fighting game, it's because I want to do the story mode, or just, like, the versus, or whatever. Like, on old school fighting games, I didn't really have a story mode. It was like, all right, you choose your character and you're going to go through the tiers of all people and see if you can get to the end and defeat Shao Kahn. So I do that, and that's it.
Yeah, like more often than not with fighting games with me, it's literally get the game like $20 or less, play the story mode, and then once in a blue moon I get to play it with friends. But like it's I don't have the patience. It's not even the time. I don't have the patience to get really good at a fighting game because they are very intricate if you want to take it seriously.
Yes.
Guilty Gear is definitely one of them. The amount of like little gimmicks that they have. Like I could there's probably like more than 15 different little things that you need to know if you're going to be really good at Guilty Gear, because it's not just combos. There are all these little like systems. There's like the Roman cancel that's like a special block you can do to really get yourself out of a jam. But like that's one of so many things that they have. Mm-hmm. So you know, and the same goes with like even something that's more simplistic like Mortal Kombat. It's still like I can play on easy mode and story mode, and I can still have moments where I'm getting my ass kicked because I just can't string it together anything.
Yeah.
Also, I'm bad at blocking. I think blocking's for pussies. That's my biggest problem with fighting games.
I don't think I block even once. So if anybody wants to fight me in a fighting game, the trick is to attack because I won't block it.
Yeah. You basically just wait for me to give you a slight opening, and then you basically win. That's it.
Yeah.
And by slight opening, I mean like literally everything I do.
Yeah, everything. Just punch me right where my face is. I won't block it.
But what we will have to block, unfortunately, is the rest of the show because we are an hour in. I think that's a good place to stop. For those wondering, excuse me, Jesus, cough. Why? No COVID. We're gonna kind of put the games aside for a little bit because I think that I like it better because like this show we just did an hour and most of it was on Capcom and we did a little bit of history. I think I like that better because it means we can focus more on that instead of taking like 5-10 minutes out. Now, if there's something really cool that I come across that I think would be fun, like the Final Fantasy thing, that's a great intro to do it. But I think like just saying, hey, Chris, how much does this cost lose? I think like as fun as it is to watch Chris sweat as he tries to figure it out, I would much rather just have really awesome conversations about just how old we are. And, it stresses him out too, but in a different way. I think that's why I like it.
Yeah, so as somebody who was suffering every one of those games, I totally love the idea of just taking these off the table for a while. Because, oh my god, first you make me feel old, then you'd make me feel stupid. And I didn't know. So yeah, no, I'm all for it. I say get rid of them.
So if anybody's wondering why that is, that was my call that I went, you know what? I think we'll just, since we only got an hour, we'll spend more time on talking. If something cool comes up, like if I find a cool like trivia thing on Reddit like someday, maybe I'll throw that on. But like relatively speaking, I don't want to make that a gimmick. I'd rather just talking about retro games be the big gimmick on the show. So.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Well, we'll leave the guessing game to Kaylan when he gets to try to grill me on trophies, which I am not having a good record on recently. So I need to get back in the game on that one.
Yeah. Study up, man. What the heck?
Well, I'm sorry. Like, the guy that doesn't actually get a lot of trophy collecting is really bad at guessing trophy games all of a sudden. What a surprise.
That's the best part, because you're not a trophy hunter at all. So.
But usually I can connect like, Kaylan's starting to learn. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but if you put enough trophies in there that actually link to something directly, I get thrown off the case. Because last time was LA Noire, but I got so, like, triggered on No Rest for the Wicked and thinking Borderlands. Or like he said, Public Menace. So I went, oh, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So like enough trophies that have that kind of referencing completely throws me off. So I stopped going, hey, all of these trophies kind of have something in common. Instead, brain goes, whoa, and is completely gone in like 5 other directions. My brain becomes Bugs Bunny and taking the wrong turn at Albuquerque and then like ending up in Newfoundland.
Well, there's a retro reference right there for sure.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing it's missing is me with the pompous like judge wig while a floating glove is trying to direct an orchestra at this point.
Oh, that's a classic episode. Classic.
But yeah, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Cartridge and Quarters. Thank you so much for checking out the show. So, as always, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, if you haven't liked the video and subscribed to the channel, I know it's painful to have to say every time. Believe me, I hate saying it. It's almost like every time I start a stream and have to go, hey, guys, how's it go? Like, you're always like, oh, God, I sound like every friggin' person ever on the internet. But, like, you have to do it. You have to like and subscribe. Like, come on. Obvious. And then, obviously, if you're listening to any audio platform, whether that's Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from, if you can give us a rating, do that. Otherwise, you join your YouTube brethren and share this show with all of your friends, especially your retro gamers. You gotta throw this show at them. And then, if you want to know more about us, if you want to see our socials, our link to our Discord, if you want to email us questions, which, by the way, I don't think I've asked before. If anybody watches the show and has, like, any questions, or if you guys just want to say, like, hey, do you guys remember this game? Or if you find something weird, like when we found Holy Diver the other week, if you want to throw something cool at us, dude, like, it's pixelplaypodcast@gmail.com, but also our Linktree has all of that stuff. That is Linktree/pixelplaypodcast. No. This isn't Scouts. It's /pixelplaypodcast. There's my other retro, being a Cub Scout. But it's Linktree, linktr.ee/pixelplaypodcast. That's all the information you need to know about us and and I wouldn't say our sister show. It's the mother show because it is the original, the Pixel Play Podcast, which is up every Wednesday at noon as this show comes up every Saturday morning at 10. So, on behalf of Chris, I want to thank everybody one more time for checking out this episode. And we'll see you next week when we hope to either have something positive to talk about or we just get to, lament about, the history of games that we don't get to play anymore.
So sad, but true.
Depressing. Bye-bye.
Bye.